I do believe like I was a pretty like angry 20-year-old, or in my 20s there was of like a kind of a little foundation of anger and anxiety that I had to work through in different ways. And so I really know that like if you carry around this thing, like it starts to erode different parts of your life.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
even now, if there's someone I think about that like betrayed or wronged me in a certain way, I work really hard to, because I can understand people like your client is an extreme and great example for that. Like that she would think like this person does not deserve forgiveness, but on in your example, they also, she also doesn't deserve to have to carry around all that anger and rage
Precisely.
and et cetera like that. So I guess where does someone start if they've been betrayed or wronged, or to whatever degree on the spectrum it is? Where do they start to let go of that anger?
Yeah, that's well, and of course, so I have like several chapters in the book called Three Steps to Forgiveness. And, it's an artificial way of doing it, but, I like it as a way of structuring an answer to that very question. Where do you start? So the three steps. Step one is forgive yourself. And forgive yourself doesn't mean you were to blame for what happened. You know what I mean? The person who was cheated on isn't to blame for the other person cheating. The example I gave of that woman, she was not to blame for her husband being violent. I mean, this doesn't matter how annoying she was, or whatever.
Right.
That did not justify in any way his being violent. So she wasn't in any way morally responsible for what happened, but a phenomenon. And again, I get this out of my training in helping people deal with trauma. As I mentioned, it's a lot about dealing with trauma. When you're recovering from a bad thing that happened to you, we always, as a species, we tend to blame ourselves, at least in part. That explains why people who were sexually abused as young children often blame themselves. As adults, they'll think back and say, they were 3 years old and were sexually abused, for a period of several years, starting at 3. And they're thinking, oh my God, I should have stopped it. Seriously? I mean, they know better cognitively that a 3-year-old
Right.
doesn't have that power, but they still blame themselves because it beats the alternative, which is to feel like the world is completely out of control, completely terrible all the time, and
Mm.
walking around in just abject fear all the time. If you can blame yourself, you can feel like, well, maybe I somehow caused it, and so maybe I have some control over it. It's not accurate, but it's psychologically understandable. That's why people do that. So there's
Yeah.
always a tendency, somebody gets in a car accident that clearly wasn't their fault, and they're still blaming themselves. I should have known, or oh my God, when there's a suicide in a family, and the family will often blame themselves, even though they had no way of knowing the person was going to do it. They'll look back and say, "Oh, I should have seen the signs," and they'll beat themselves up about it. And it's natural. It's not. It wasn't their fault, but to feel that way is a natural part of it. So,
Right.
how do
Well,
you? Yeah, go ahead.
sorry for me. I've spoken with a couple people that have went through bullying, and I had a few years of it in my early years as well. And it, I think it was into my late 20s that I spoke with the therapist, and she had to explain to me why that wasn't my fault. And
Yeah,
I really had, like, it wasn't something that I thought about, but like definitely was something that impacted me in an enormous, profound way. And I remember when it took a few sessions where she had to walk me through how this was not my fault.
hmm
And when she finally, got through my thick skull, or all those different layers of, I guess, trauma to that I've been going over for years. I really, like, I remember I just sat there for like 5 minutes because my whole world kind of, in a good way, had kind of flipped upside down.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
can imagine it's similar in an environment where in a relationship where someone was betrayed. And I guess it's really hard to draw a line between accountability and blaming
It
yourself.
absolutely is, and that's an interesting line, because when you can actually, what I mean by forgiving yourself, what you were able to do, it sounds like, with respect to being bullied as a kid, what actually that means to me when I say it is you were able to look and say, wait a minute, given who I was, given what I knew and didn't know, given the power I didn't have, which is different from now as an adult. Oh my God, I was doing the best I could. Even though, with hindsight, of course, if you could have known to do something different, you would have.
Right.
but you couldn't, you weren't that person. So to accept that is what it means. And then you stop beating yourself up. It's like, oh, okay. Wait a minute. I really was doing the best I could. That is liberating as you experience. It feels like, oh, good. That feels so much better. And that tees up very nicely step two, because step two of forgiving is to forgive the person who hurt you. And the reason I say that forgiving yourself tees that up very nicely is because basically to forgive someone who hurt you is to recognize that on some level, maybe not morally, but on some level, they were doing the best they could too. The bullies were doing the best they could. I'm not condoning bullying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's fine that they did it or you just have to accept it. No, not at all. But I'm observing that, well, given the forces involved, given who they were, given how they viewed the world, that's what they did. And you can accept that. You don't have to fight it anymore. You can just say, well, blast, that's who they are, When somebody's cheated on you, it's like, wow, I can't condone it morally, but I can say, I can try at least understand, well, where did that come from? Because look, so many times, and look, who of us has not done something we regret doing? We've all hurt other people. We haven't all cheated on our spouses, right? But we have all hurt other people in one way or another, big or small. I'm not equating them, but I've done things and looked back and said, oh, I feel bad that I did that. I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I had known better than to do that. At the moment I did it, it's what I did. So I guess it was sort of the best I could do at that point. I know better now, so I'm pretty confident I won't do it again. If you can extend that to the person who hurt you, you can say, oh, I don't have to bother being angry at you anymore. I still don't know if I trust you. Whole different set of questions. Like I said about the woman who, she was no way trusting her ex-husband, but I don't have to bother being angry anymore. It involves finding some way of wrapping your brain around the idea that whoever this person was, that's who they were. That was the best they could do.